President Park Geun-hye and political party chiefs agreed to raise the minimum wage and reform civil servant pensions in a meeting at the presidential office. Washington and Seoul sat down to discuss THAAD missile deployment in Korea one day after Beijing expressed its displeasure at the idea. And former Korean Air Vice President Cho Yeon-ah explains why she's appealing the one-year sentence she received in the so-called nut rage incident. Hello and welcome to News Today on KBS World. It's Wednesday, March 18th. I'm Luke Clary. President Park Geun-hye held talks with rival political party chiefs at her office to discuss pending state issues. Park and the two party heads agreed on the need to raise the minimum wage and reform civil servant pensions.
During a meeting with ruling and opposition party leaders, President Park Geun-hye asked for bipartisan cooperation so that results of a recent Middle Eastern trip could bear fruit.
외교 성과나 결실도 또 국회에서 잘 협조를 해주셔야 완결될 수 있다고 생각합니다.
Chairman of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, Moon Jae-in, said his party will cooperate in necessary areas, but he criticized the economy being in a state of total crisis. Ruling Saenuri Party Chairman Moo-sung, meanwhile, called for bipartisan cooperation to revitalize the economy.
정부의 경제 정책은 국민적 삶을 지도하는 데 실패했다고 생각합니다.
국적이 90%가 경제라고 생각하는데 경제에 있어서는 여야가 있어서 좋다라고 생각을 하고.
The president and the two party chiefs agreed on the need to reform civil service pensions. Kim asked the opposition to abide by the agreed deadline for the reform, while Moon said the civil servants community must be persuaded on the reform move. The three also agreed that a minimum wage hike is also necessary, but differed on how much. President Park also hinted at holding more similar talks with the party chiefs if necessary when Kim and Moon asked her to accept calls for talks.
A day after Beijing expressed protest against the THAAD missiles, Washington and Seoul officials sat down to discuss the matter. Washington criticized Beijing, saying that it's up to Seoul to decide on the issue, and the conflict has escalated further, as the South Korean National Defense Ministry sided with the U.S. government. In a meeting with Korean government officials, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell said that the final say on the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD missiles, belongs to South Korea.
It is for the Republic of Korea to decide what measures it will take in its own alliance defense and when.
Russell reiterated the importance of the THAAD missiles, citing responsibility for protecting South Korea and the U.S. from the North Korean threat. The South Korean military also expressed its discontent to China by saying that it's up to Korea to decide whether or not to deploy the missiles in order to enhance national security.
주변국이 주한미군의 사드 배치에 대해 나름대로의 입장은 가질 수 있습니다. 하지만 우리의 국방안보 정책에 대해서 영향력을 행사하려고 해서는 안 됩니다.
However, this did little to persuade China.
一国在谋求自身安全时，必须顾及其他国家的安全关切和地区的和平稳定。
The South Korean government plans to maintain its strategic ambiguity for the time being, but the conflict over the THAAD missiles has already created serious diplomatic tensions. A former naval chief was questioned through the early hours of Wednesday by a government task force looking into defense sector corruption. He was summoned over alleged involvement in a corruption scandal surrounding the Navy salvage ship Tongyang, which could not be mobilized during the search operation for the sunken Sewol ferry due to its poor performance.
Former Chief of Naval Operations Hwang Ki-chul was summoned Tuesday morning and questioned for 18 hours by a joint investigation team looking into irregularities related to defense projects. He finally left the prosecutor's office early Wednesday with a stern look on his face.
오늘 검찰 조사에서 어떤 부분 소명하셨습니까?
성실 조사에 임했습니다.
The ex-Navy chief is charged with approving a sound wave detector for the salvage ship Tongyeong back in 2009 when he was in charge of the Vessel Project Division at the Defense Acquisition Program Administration. He allegedly made the approval by turning a blind eye to fabricated test results on the sound wave detector. The sound wave device, produced in the 1970s and originally costing some $177,000 US, was applied at a price of over $3.6 million, 20 times the original cost. Investigators believe Hwang could have possibly ordered or condoned the fabrication of the test results. During questioning, Hwang is known to have denied playing any direct role in the fabrication.
Prosecutors have found evidence that the results of the internal audit into POSCO Engineering and Construction were not accurate. And to confirm this, the prosecutors have raided the office of POSCO E&C's partner company.
Prosecutors recently received detailed material regarding construction deals between POSCO Engineering and Construction partner company Hungoo Industrial and subcontractors from police that have been investigating POSCO E&C's corruption scandal. After reviewing the material, prosecutors found that after signing a contract on POSCO E&C's construction project in Vietnam, Hungoo Industrial exaggerated the construction costs when outsourcing the project to subcontractors in a bid to raise slush funds. The amount of slush funds raised in Vietnam could be much higher than the initially reported amount of approximately $8.8 million US. To gather evidence, the prosecutors on Tuesday raided the offices of Hungoo Industrial and 2 relevant firms, as well as the house of a Hungoo Industrial executive. They have also obtained the affidavit of a former POSCO E&C executive identified only by his family name Park, who masterminded the slush funds. Sources say that in his affidavit, Park said that counter to the results of the internal audit into POSCO E&C, about $4.2 million in the slush funds were delivered within the company. The investigation will likely focus on how the $4.2 million were spent.
Former Korean Air Vice President Cho Yeon-ah, who was sentenced to a prison term over what's known as the nut rage incident, has submitted a letter to the court explaining why she's appealing the prison sentence. She has mainly taken issue with her guilty charge of altering a plane's course when no clear regulations on this matter exist.
Former Korean Air Vice President Cho Yeon-ah was sentenced to a 1-year prison term in the first trial. Now she has submitted a letter to the court stating why she's appealing the sentence. In the letter, Cho argued that with no clear regulations existing under the current law related to the course of a plane, the court violated the principle of legality by handing down a guilty verdict based on the interpretation of a plane's course to include the time it remained on the ground. Earlier, on February 12th, she submitted a petition to appeal the court decision on her sentencing. With the latest letter explaining her reasons, an appeals process is expected to kick off as early as this month. Through random electronic assignment, the appeals case has been allotted to the Criminal Division 6 of the Seoul High Court. Cho's camp is known to have appointed 3 new lawyers who formerly served as senior justices while keeping just 1 lawyer from the previous defense team that represented her in the first trial.
A 50-something ex-convict who broke his electronic anklet and went on the lam was caught within a week. Still, police were unable to identify the runaway's whereabouts for 5 days. Here's why.
On March 10th, a 56-year-old ex-convict identified only by his family name Yang broke his electronic anklet and disappeared. Police were unable to find any clues for 5 days. The following day, Yang even committed robbery using tools that he had prepared in advance. He then fled to Bucheon and Siheung and later returned to Incheon, where he spent time in cafes near his home. The perpetrator used an old, conventionally analog method to escape from police. He got rid of his mobile phone, credit cards, and everything that could leave traces. Police used state-of-the-art techniques to apprehend him, but to no avail.
추적할 단서가 전혀 없었습니다. 휴대폰도 없고 모든 게 없기 때문에 추적할 단서가 없어가지고.
Police eventually had to use older, conventional methods to catch the culprit, with stakeouts and legwork lasting days and nights.
Small sports utility vehicles offering convenience and high fuel efficiency are growing quite popular among younger consumers. The competition in the small SUV market is expected to intensify following the release of the Ssangyong Tivoli and Hyundai Motors' new Tucson.
This is Hyundai Motors' all-new Tucson, the latest model in 6 years. It features a lower frame to provide more stability while ensuring a roomier interior with a longer body. More than 50% of the chassis is made with lighter but stronger high-tension steel plates. Also, a new 1700cc model with a gas mileage of more than 15 kilometers per liter was added to the existing 1200cc line. The new model has been designed to target the booming small SUV market.
고연비 니즈를 충족하는 한편 성장세인 소형 SUV 시장에 대응할 수 있도록 개발했습니다.
The market for small SUVs under 2,000 cc's has grown rapidly in recent years, from 67,000 vehicles in 2008 to 167,000 in 2014. Meanwhile, more than 5,000 Ssangyong Tivolis were sold in just 2 months after it was released earlier this year. The spiking sales have driven the market to expand rapidly. Thus, the competition among the new, stylish, convenient, and economical SUV models targeting young consumers is expected to heat up even more.
Twin vocalists Hugak and Hugong each released a new song on the same day. This and more news is coming up in today's Showbiz segment.
Twin singers Hugak and Hugong respectively released new songs on Tuesday. Younger twin Hugak's ballad Snow of April climbed to the top of major music charts immediately after its release. Older brother Hugong's new song is a remake of Immortal Love, balladeer Cho Sung-mo's mega hit from the 1990s. His singing style features an entirely different charm from that of his younger twin. Hot stars of multiple TV shows are to begin their military service, one after another. Choi Jin-hyuk and Kim Jae-jung are to enter the military at the end of this month, while Park Yu-chun, Yoo-ah-in, Lee Seung-gi, and Lee Min-ho are to join the service any day now. A new generation of young actors is expected to emerge as these stars who have dominated TV screens for many years are to vacate the field en masse. Hallyu star Chang Geun-seok began a concert tour of 8 Japanese cities last Saturday, starting in Osaka. Chang is to hold 28 concerts during the tour. His publicity agency said that the shows in 6 cities, excluding Tokyo and Kobe, have already been sold out.
Pop culture from 2 or even 3 decades ago is enjoying renewed popularity as people born in the 1980s or 90s come of age. Even leisure sports popular years ago are coming back in this retro trend. Let's take a look.
The drama A Place in the Sun recorded viewer ratings of 60% in the 1990s.
Seopyeonjae was the first Korean film to draw more than 1 million moviegoers. Singer Kim Gun-mo set the record of selling 10 million copies for an album. The idol group SES, nicknamed Fairies, made its debut. The pop culture from the 1990s is regaining its popularity.
아무래도 어린 시절의 좀 추억을 되살릴 수 있는 음악들을 들으니까 좋은 것 같고요.
Singer Lee Sun-hee made a comeback on the back of the retro culture boom. The boy group G.O.D. reunited in its complete form and returned to the stage 12 years after it disbanded. Singer So Tae-ji, who was called the cultural president in the 1990s, released an album for the first time in 5 years. The 80s and 90s culture boom has stimulated the return of leisure sports activities that were popular at the time. This is a bowling pub. In the 1980s and 90s, people used to go bowling frequently. At this pub, people can bowl while enjoying a glass of ice-cold beer.
10여 년 만에 볼링을 쳐보니까 너무 신기하기도 하고 재밌기도 하고 새롭기도 합니다.
A ping-pong pub has also emerged. After an intense game of ping-pong, a glass of cold beer is just the right choice to cool off.
1980년대에서 90년대에 청춘을 보낸 사람들이 지금 적극적인 문화의 소비의 주체로 나서고 있는데요. 자기가 가장 행복했던 세대로 회귀하려는 본능이 강하기 때문에 현재 8090의 문화가 다시 주목받고 있는 것 같습니다.
The 80s and 90s generation was born at the height of South Korea's economic development. Their nostalgia for the good old days has encouraged the return of their pop culture. The rise of the retro trend is even expected to breathe new life into the sluggish cultural industry.
And now let's take a look at the markets, followed by the world weather. And that's it for this edition of News Today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye.